tonight's guest is a woman that I met a few weeks ago who is an immigration attorney. And the timing is crazy because there she is. We had a really interesting call today from someone in another country. Let me try and grab you, Angela. Where it was like both parents were dealing with a custody issue and neither of them was a citizen, and the courts in the other country trying to figure out like what to do. I don't know if you could hear all of that, Angela, but
Yes,
thanks for coming.
yes, yes.
Yeah, it was
Thank you so much,
crazy.
Lisa. I'm so happy to be here. Hi, everyone.
Yeah, yeah, thanks, Angela. I was just saying how we met in person, and I had this like very interesting call today, which I'm sure you know you don't even want to get into, but it was like when two people are both in a different country, neither are residents, and they're dealing with the custody issues, and neither has a visa.
Oh, wow. Yeah,
Yeah,
that's probably one of the more difficult situations to handle, I'm sure.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, welcome. Thanks for coming, and tell everybody exactly who you are and what you do.
Great. Well, my name is Angela Torregoza. I'm an immigration attorney based in New York City. So I help individuals with their family petitions, get their families here. We also help artists and entrepreneurs live and work in the US. And specifically, I got into VAWA work, which is the Violence Against Women's Act, as part of really just being an immigration attorney or being in the immigration sphere. You're expected to learn about or know about the remedies that may help your client. So VAWA is just a very important option for foreign nationals. So specifically, VAWA is an immigration remedy for those who were abused while living with their US citizen or permanent resident spouse. So it gives them a path to legalization, to get a green card or permanent residence, and eventually a path to citizenship in the US.
Wow. All right. So before we even get into VAWA, I want to talk a tiny bit about you.
Okay.
And tell me, because I know you're very artsy and interesting. I'm looking at your gorgeous necklace. What got you into this field of work?
Yeah, well, I'm an immigrant myself. So my mom was the trailblazer, as all women are, and most in my experience, immigrant women are so resilient, and they really have to do everything they can to support their family. And I think this is the case for many single mothers out there, or even if they're not single, they do feel like they're single, handling so many things on a daily basis. But my mom was the one who came to the US first, and eventually she petitioned for us to join her. And so the whole family was able to immigrate, and we went through the process. And so that's what got me interested in this type of work, is that I can empathize with the people that I'm helping, and I know that it can be a very long and complicated process, but when I work with a client, I love how we collaborate in order to have the best possible application to be submitted on their behalf.
Yeah, I mean, I love that you've been through it yourself. Of course, we're called been there, got out. It's not got out, but you got through it. And it obviously had such an impact on you. And I'm sure it makes you really good at what you do because you can relate to your clients so well.
Yeah, yeah, and I really just love, the idea of working with a client and just getting their story out there in the best possible way.
Yeah. All right. So now let's get back to VAWA. So VAWA is the Violence Against Women Act. Tell us first what it is and then get into how it can help in terms of immigration.
Great. So the Violence Against Women's Act, it's a law that protects victims and survivors of domestic violence. It's in all variety of contexts, right? So in immigration, it helps a foreign national who was married to a foreign national, a spouse or a child of an abusive U.S. citizen or permanent resident while they were living together. And basically, this allows the person to obtain permanent residence and be able to live here in the US, live and work in a safe and secure way.
I mean, that's the thing. When we do talk to people who are immigrants, they are often terrified because on top of everything else they're dealing with in a difficult relationship, they're worried about having to leave the country, having no resources, what's going to happen to their kids. Their ex or their soon to be ex, or not even soon to be ex, is often saying, you're going to have to go and I'm going to keep everything, money, kids. Is that what you see?
Yeah, it's so sad because, when I think when people come into a relationship, they think, oh, this is my forever future, right? And then, reality hits and they see that their very vulnerable status can actually lead to them losing what they've worked so hard for. So yeah, and I'm sure you see this a lot in your work where um, the person with legal status will use the threat of deportation as a bargaining chip to get what they want, and it's so sad and it's so unfortunate. But I'm happy that we have this law which um, helps people who may be in need of this type of remedy.
So, so something like VAWA, I think most people don't understand, and especially I would imagine immigrants would have no idea that this law exists. I mean, we're talking about it now, but how do you educate people, immigrant women in particular, on this law so that that they actually have this kind of knowledge?
Yeah, it's so interesting that you mentioned that because I had a client who was going through the same thing, and I was helping her on a different type of visa, and she just happened to mention she was going through a tough time right now, and I said, you could actually qualify for permanent residency because of what happened to you, and she said, oh wow, I didn't know that. And I think hearing that was quite empowering to her because she was feeling really helpless and
Mhm.
that she didn't have any options, right? That everything was just like she was in such a dark place, and knowing that there could be something positive after her experience was very empowering to her. And yeah, not many people know about this. So I think, we should just be spreading the word about, this type of option.
Yeah, it's interesting because we just came back from traveling, and in some of the airports on the back of bathroom stall doors, they had information on, like in the women's bathroom, on women's rights, and if you feel like you're in trouble, call this number. Not specifically on VAWA, but this kind of thing where I think people would have no idea that there are resources to help them. But before we even get into the resources, let's say I'm an immigrant and I'm in an abusive relationship and I'm thinking of leaving, like, what do I need? What kinds of documents would I have to put together before
Yeah,
I even start the
yeah.
process?
So I'm just gonna look at my notes. I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. So yeah, so I guess the very first thing that I always tell my clients is to have a safety plan. And so, what is a safety plan? Right? I'm sure you've talked about this before, but really, at the very least, you need to have someone that you can trust and that you can contact at any time. So that's really the minimum that you want. But there's so many resources out there for what a good safety plan is, and you can customize that to your needs, right? But the very first thing, know someone you can trust, have their contact information, and obviously, if it is an emergency, definitely call 911. So in terms of wherever you are at in the point in your relationship, so whether um, you're ready, the marriage has been unraveling, or you're still kind of um, before the divorce is even contemplated, many people can actually prepare for this if this is something that they're thinking of doing. So in preparation, every case is different, but you should have first your identification. So what would be identification that would fit in this application? It would be your passport. So assuming that, let's say, you have you have been here in the US undocumented, you haven't gone to your country, you have probably an expired passport that you used when you entered the country, you can just go to your embassy or consulate and renew that. So that shouldn't, the fact that you've overstayed here shouldn't be a deterrent for you to renew it. And also, a current passport is your identification. So it's
Okay,
always
so
important. Mhm.
pause for one. So if let's say I'm here, I've overstayed. I don't have to worry about getting in trouble because I've overstayed if I go to the embassy.
Yeah, your embassy should be able to protect you. You are a citizen of, whenever you step into your embassy, you step into the land, your home country. So you should not fear any repercussions by going to your embassy, by asking for a renewal of your passport. That should not be the case.
I'm really glad you emphasize that because, our clients and people in general are so terrified that they're going to get in trouble. So I'm glad that you mentioned this. It's almost like a safe haven, no matter what, like go there because that's like going home on some level.
Yeah, for sure. It should be a safe haven. So that's something that I always tell my clients is that you shouldn't be afraid to go to your own embassy. It's like your home. You
Mhm.
should be protected when you get there. So yeah, so identification would be a current passport. If you hopefully you have a passport. If not, NYC ID, which is also proof that uh, of your residence, that you're a New York City resident. And
Okay,
I'm sure there are other.
I was sorry, I was going to say, what if somebody's ex has taken their ID?
Yeah. So that's the thing, right? And this does happen. Um, anything, any document that shows your identity. So and unfortunately, with immigration and all these other applications, it's document intensive, right? So
Mhm.
they don't, because of the sensitive nature of this application, they normally don't ask you to attend an in-person interview, so it's all done through documentation. And that's why it's document intensive because it's,
Wow.
yeah, so it's really just through documents. So I think in preparation, make sure you have ID or obtain ID. Um, I think the passport should be the, I wouldn't say the easiest to get, but it should be within reach for everyone. And your consulate should be able to help you if you need help, and if you are coming to the embassy because of the abuse, because your life is in danger, they should have the resources to help you.
Wow.
Yeah. Okay. And then civil documents. So this would be birth certificates, marriage certificates. And so one thing I want to emphasize about VAWA, so it's Violence Against Women's Act, but it's not gender specific, right? Males can also apply.
Oh, really?
So yes.
I bet very few men, if hardly anyone knows about it, I imagine men wouldn't even consider
Yeah.
that this law could actually protect them.
Yeah, yeah. It protects men, it protects children who've been abused by parents to get status, right? So if, for example, a stepchild who's here undocumented can receive protection, who was abused by a U.S. citizen parent, can get this benefit. Also, if you are married to a US citizen and your child has been abused, you could, even if you haven't been physically abused, obviously the abuse to your child can count as extreme cruelty, and that will also help you in this application.
All right, so this is really interesting because I think we often assume when we think abuse that it's from a partner, but I'm glad you're explaining that it's so much more, that it's not just for women, but also it protects your children, and not even necessarily just the children that you share with the American citizen, but if it's your own children from a prior relationship that are being treated poorly, and not even just physically, but you're able to show extreme cruelty, that law can protect those kids as well.
Yeah, the standard or the law is if you suffered battery, so that's physical abuse, or extreme cruelty. So extreme cruelty would be the mental and the emotional abuse.
So that's really hard to prove, though. I mean, at least here we hear that all the time, is how can I mean, physical abuse is so much easier. And many people often say, I wish that person hit me because then I could have something to show for it. But how can someone prove emotional abuse or extreme cruelty? Like, can you give some examples of things that are actually acceptable? I mean, you know what I mean? Not acceptable behavior, but acceptable in terms of proof.
Yes, yes. So for our clients, this extreme cruelty, this physical, this mental, emotional abuse, is demonstrated through a psychological evaluation, among other things. So we would refer our client to a psychologist or psychiatrist or a social worker who can administer an evaluation of the trauma that they've experienced.
Wow.
Yes, and also affidavits from the applicant themselves, as well as affidavits from people that know about the abuse and can attest to it. And really, every case is different. So, assuming you're having the extreme cruelty is through texts, for example, then the texts can be printed, and really, it really, like, you can be as creative as the situation allows. The
Like
important
videos, audios.
Yeah, so then the videos, audios would be, we'll have to like do a screenshot and explain that. Unfortunately, you can't give a bit, you can't submit a video, so it'll have to be something that we can distill into a hard copy that we can submit to immigration. But yeah, every case is different, and so whenever I do a consultation with a client, um, I actually tell them, like, think about what happened to you and how you think we can demonstrate this, because what applies to one client may not necessarily apply to another. So you are the best storyteller of what happened to you. So I ask them to start writing about what happened, and then I help them craft the affidavit that meets the criteria of the law, so that we ensure that whatever is submitted um, is in their voice, but also meets the required criteria.
Okay, so let me think of a scenario where people have already been traumatized. Someone's already been traumatized,
Mm-hmm.
and then they kind of have to relive it by writing it down. That's part of the process. But do they ever have to go? I mean, you said this is submission of documents. But do they have to worry about the other side saying that's not true, she's a liar, he's a liar, and or the child's a liar, and then everything falls apart? Because in family court, that's a big problem. It's like people are not believed, the evidence doesn't meet the standard, and I imagine again there's even more fear with people from different countries and who might not necessarily even speak English, with like I don't want to take a chance, I don't want to have more abuse if I even try to get away.
Yeah, and yeah, that's a really good point. I tell my clients, you will likely experience, re-traumatizing yourself with this application. But at the end of it, you're gonna come out feeling empowered,
Mm-hmm.
having done what you needed to do, right? In order to get out of that situation and to improve your life. And there are cases that they do deny VAWA cases, right? But you can always reapply. Um, you can always supplement what you've submitted, right? So um, you can never lose hope, I think, in these applications. And I think that's the very important point, is to always, kind of be positive and be forward looking, right? And it's probably hard to do that when you're in such a dark place, but I'm glad that's why you have these lives where we help people prepare for before they get there. So I'm glad that we touched upon the proof of abuse, proof of or extreme cruelty. I have three more documents that I'd like to share. So you also need to have proof of your spouse, parent, son, or daughter's status. So the abuser status. So it would either be their green card, um, their U.S. passport, birth certificate. So anything that shows where they were born, if they were born here, or if they became a U.S. citizen, a U.S. permanent resident. And there have been cases where uh, the client had to flee the marital home without even getting all of these documents, and I'm sure that happens a lot. And so the proof of U.S. citizenship, how do we get it, right? So if the abuser was a permanent resident or and naturalized, the U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services should have that. So then you indicate you would have that information.
So you can
um,
get that information elsewhere.
yeah. So basically, the immigration system should have that information
Mhm.
because they approved that application. So in this case, in the application, you would indicate that this person was a green card holder. Unfortunately, because of the way that I had left my marital home, I wasn't able to collect his green card or his passport, but you would have this information in your records.
Mhm.
This is his date of birth. So yeah, so it can be proven in other ways.
Okay. Now, what about the time that it takes for an application like this?
It depends. What I've seen that is taking time would be collecting affidavits from third parties.
Mhm.
So these affidavits would be, attesting to the relationship, or that they live together, um, or that there's been abuse, or attesting to the fact that this person is a US citizen. So those supporting affidavits can take time because you have to get it from third parties. And so, whose schedules are probably not within, your control. So
Mhm.
if you are thinking of applying for such relief, start thinking about people to approach for these affidavits, because that can take long. Um, so, proof of living together would also include joint bills, joint tax returns, joint bank statements, joint leases, invoices or bills that have both your names on it. So really just any documentation that shows that you did live together. So that's also necessary. And then the last thing would be proof of good moral character. So if you have been contributing to your community, maybe a letter from the community members or the community organization, payment of taxes is always good.
Oh, really?
And yeah, and
Good
if
moral character.
yeah. And if nothing else, if you don't have a criminal record, that's great.
Okay, good. So the standard's not like you have to be attending every school bake sale and volunteering for your child's sports team. It's not like that.
No. And that's what I love about this this immigration remedy is that it's very victim centered or survivor centered. So they do understand about the trauma that these applicants have already gone through, and so they minimize the second wave of trauma with the application. I mean, it's still it will still kind of you'll still think back about what happened to you and hopefully in a positive light, because you're using what happened to you to empower yourself. So I think that's the way to look at it.
Yeah. Wow. What about, I know this is always a huge issue for non-immigrants and immigrants. Someone says, I want to leave, but I have no money. I'm completely financially dependent on this person.
Yeah. Unfortunately, that happens a lot. The good thing is that there are resources in our country, right? So in New York, there are many nonprofit organizations that provide legal and social services. So if you don't have money, you can go. I have 3 organizations, and I'll email you, Lisa, the information so you can share it. But Safe Horizon is a great resource. So their website is safehorizon.org, and their phone number is 1-800-621-HOPE, which is 4673. So they offer legal services and social services. So if you are at the point where I can't leave because I don't have financial resources, know that there are organizations such as Safe Horizon that can help you. Another useful project is City Bar Justice Center, Immigrant Justice Project, and their phone number is 212-382-6710. And basically, they help provide legal services as well, pro bono legal services. And last would be Legal Aid Society. Their phone number is 212-577-3300. And their website is legalaidnyc.org.
Okay, and this is New York centered, right? Or are there national? Yeah. Are there places in different? Yeah, go ahead.
If you're in another state, I think the very first thing to do would be contact your local bar association and ask them for any legal services organization that help with VAWA. And usually those organizations would also have a social service component. Yeah.
Wow, great.
And then I'm going to give you Immigration Advocates Legal Directory. So this is a legal directory for all US. So it's called, the website is immigrationadvocates.org. And there should be a link on that page for legal directory. And the person looking for legal services can just type in their zip code, and all of those organizations that provide free help will come up on the list.
This is amazing. I wish we had something like this for family court. This is incredible, like free legal services and all kinds of other assistance. That's just incredible.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, they've put a lot of, funding to help um, vulnerable immigrant populations,
Wow.
especially with this VAWA reauthorization.
Okay, that's excellent. Okay, so what about, you had said that most of this is documenting. Is there an actual point where you have to go to court or you have court virtually?
No,
Like
there's
what should
no.
if it's me, what would I expect?
So everything is it's through documentation. So this is really putting together a paper application, working with your lawyer to put a paper application that clearly shows what you've gone through. Because there is no court appearance, there is no talking to a judge, there's no interview. There can be limitations in terms of really putting forth what you want to come across. So it's really important to have a very thorough statement describing what happened to you, a psychological evaluation that shows not only your mental emotional trauma, but also corroborates your physical abuse, if any. And then if there's physical abuse, you'd want to submit medical reports, doctor reports, police reports, if those reports have been filed. So really, like whatever applies to your situation, you want to make sure you're documenting it. And I know this is probably not something you're thinking about when you're like, at that situation, but if this is something that you think will help you in the future and you want to pursue this, that's the frame of mind that you should be thinking of.
Wow. All right. This is super helpful. So now what about that's like the actual logistical parts of extracting yourself from a relationship like this, but there's all the emotional stuff. Is there any kinds of emotional support resources?
Yeah. So a lot of I can only speak for New York, but I'm sure whatever the case here in New York, I'm sure there's like comparable resources in other states, and that immigration advocates resource website that I provided should be able to help you if you're out of state. But here in New York, there are many specific organizations that help domestic violence abuse victims, either provide support groups or one-on-one therapy with social workers and therapists. So they do recognize that there is a huge need, not just to address the physical aspect of the abuse, but really, I think, very important, the mental and emotional aspect. So, for example, one of my clients, when she first came to me, she was she was deeply impacted by the abuse, obviously. But we were able to connect her with a local Latina centered nonprofit organization that spoke her language. And basically, she found that she wasn't alone. She found that there are other people who had gone through the same experience and actually made it out. And now she has her own business. She has her own delivery business. So she's one of the few women in New York City who rides her bike and delivers your Uber Eats, your uh, food delivery, and now she doesn't have to rely on anyone to support herself and her son who's back home.
Wow, that's amazing. I was going to say, when you were mentioning resources, do they also have, like, I know our local domestic violence center not only has services for victims, but for their children as well. Like, I wish I had found out so much sooner, but do they have counseling for children through some of these services?
Yeah, I believe they do. So it's really once you get connected with a social worker, the social worker can find something that would be specific to your needs. So if you had children, they would help you with maybe after school help, um, therapy, family therapy exists, and also just support groups for those that need it.
That's amazing. Again, I keep thinking, I wish we had these kinds of resources for so many other areas. What about, I'm trying to think if we forgot anything, and if we haven't, Angela, how can people find you?
Yeah, let me see. Yeah, so I think we've covered everything. Basically, you can find me at our website is www.legalease.us. That's legalease.us. We're also on social, legalese US. So yeah, and you can always get my contact info from Lisa if you need help. And I'm happy to answer any questions you may have about the topic.
Thank you so much, Angela. This is super, super helpful. We don't have tons of immigrants now, but I know a lot of people are going to see this as once it comes out and later too. So this has been really, really enlightening, and especially with VAWA, since like I didn't know exactly what it to know that it covers that too, and that it not only covers women, it covers men, it covers children, and that you don't have to go through that kind of traumatic court experience like we talk about all the time in family court. This sounds like a completely different thing, and it sounds like there's so much support involved to try to get victims out of the situation and help them move on with their lives.
Yes, yes, and thank you so much for this opportunity. As we, realized, as we talk about this, it's not everyone knows about this, and so there needs to be more exposure, and more people need to spread the word so that people who need the help can get it.
Yeah, great. All right. Well, thanks again, Angela, and I look forward to seeing you again, probably in person.
Yeah, thank you so much. Thanks everyone who joined.
Okay, take care. Bye.